Admiral Tanya Williams had always thought the stars were beautiful. As a girl, she had stared up from her grandmother's farmhouse porch, tracing constellations with a fingertip against the night. Back then, the stars had felt distant, untouchable. Now they filled the viewport of the United Earth Defense flagship Resolute. But tonight, they were not beautiful. Tonight, the stars were full of shadows. On the tactical display, a shape moved, vast, angular, alien. Bigger than any human ship ever built, the craft seemed to drink in the light, its hull shimmering with a strange iridescence that defied radar and logic alike. It hovered just beyond Earth's orbit, a silent predator against the infinite black. Williams felt her throat tighten. "Confirm contact." "Confirmed," said Lieutenant Han, his voice trembling despite military discipline. "Object is 3 kilometers in length, mass off the charts, energy signatures unlike anything in our database." The bridge crew exchanged glances, fear flickering in their eyes. Every nation on Earth had scrambled their brightest scientists to the defense fleet after the Alliance Accords, but none had imagined this. A ship not of Earth, a ship from the stars. Williams straightened her uniform jacket, forcing her hands to steady. She could not afford fear. "Patch me through, audio and visual." "Yes, Admiral." Static filled the main screen, then cleared to reveal an alien throne room. Metal and light interwove in impossible patterns, pulsing with colors the human eye struggled to name. At the center sat a being unlike anything Williams had seen. Towering insectoid, its head crowned with a gleaming crystal. 4 eyes blinked in eerie sequence, mandibles clicking softly as though tasting the air. When it spoke, the voice resonated through the speakers and inside their skulls at once. "Attention, inhabitants of the planet designated Earth. We are the Cravorn Dominion, masters of 7 galactic sectors. Your world contains resources vital to our expansion. You will surrender immediately and accept protectorate status, or you will be subjugated by force. You have 6 planetary rotations to comply." The words echoed in stunned silence. 6 days. 6 days for humanity to decide between slavery or annihilation. Williams forced her breathing calm, then spoke. "This is Admiral Tanya Williams of Earth United Defense. You have entered restricted space. By the sovereignty of Earth and her peoples, I demand you withdraw your fleet immediately." The alien shifted, amusement flashing in its crystal crown. Its mandibles clicked in a rhythm that the translator rendered as a chuckle. "How quaint, they think they own this space." The being leaned forward, predatory calm. "I am High Commander Vazix. 63 worlds have heard these words before you. 63 worlds now bow to the Dominion. You will be no different." The transmission cut. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. The silence on the bridge was suffocating. Then the crew erupted in whispers, fear, disbelief, fragments of desperate hope. Williams raised a hand, silencing them. Her voice, though quiet, carried like steel across the deck. "Send this to every government, every leader, every soldier. Earth does not surrender." 3 hours later, Williams stood in the underground command center beneath Geneva. Representatives from every major power had gathered, some in person, others by holographic projection. The air was thick with urgency and mistrust. President Okoro of Nigeria leaned forward. "You saw the transmission. Their ship is vast. Our fleets are scattered. Even if we united every defense system on Earth, we couldn't match their firepower." "Then we don't fight them conventionally," replied General Marcus Reed, the grizzled commander of North American forces. His scarred face betrayed neither fear nor hesitation. "We adapt. We improvise. Humanity has been fighting impossible wars since the dawn of time." Ambassador Zhang of China frowned. "You propose resistance against an empire spanning 7 sectors. Their technology is centuries ahead." "They underestimate us," Williams said firmly. "Vazix believes we are like the others he's crushed, but Earth has one advantage no alien fleet can predict." "And what is that?" asked Chancellor Bauer of the European Union. Williams met every eye in the room, her voice steady and deliberate. "War, we have perfected it. For thousands of years we've fought ourselves, civil wars, world wars, endless conflict. It's our curse, but also our strength. Every culture, every nation has studied battle. If we stop fighting each other, if we unite, we can make war into our salvation." The chamber fell into silence. Even the doubters found themselves unwilling to break her conviction. General Reed slammed a hand on the table. "She's right. They gave us 6 days. 6 days is an eternity if we work together. Factories, shipyards, satellites, convert everything, turn the world into one war machine. Akoro hesitated, and if we fail? Williams's jaw tightened. Then we fall as slaves, but if we fight, at least we fall as humans. The decision, when it came, spread like fire. For the first time in history, the nations of Earth stood together. By the next dawn, cities pulsed with activity. Factories once making cars retooled for weapons. Civilian ships were stripped and armored with steel plating, engines reinforced with salvaged parts. Old stockpiles of nuclear warheads were dragged out of storage, reconfigured into crude space mines. On the moon, robotic construction swarms dismantled orbital stations and welded their bones into a massive rail gun, each section rising like a titan from lunar dust. Everywhere humanity prepared, not just soldiers but mechanics, engineers, medics, and students. Farmers donated steel from their plows. Hackers sleeplessly cracked alien signals. Families sewed banners not of nations but of Earth itself. And watching it all, Admiral Williams felt the weight of history pressing on her shoulders. In 6 days, the stars would learn what humanity was made of. On the Eternal Conquest, High Commander Vazix studied the reports streaming into his neural display. His mandibles clicked in satisfaction. Primitive mobilization, inefficient, predictable. Strategic Officer Lorax bowed low, her exoskeleton gleaming. They work quickly, Commander, faster than most pre-warp species. They are desperate, Vazix replied, dismissive. Desperation is no match for Dominion firepower. Yet deep inside his four-eyed gaze, a sliver of unease stirred. He had seen this before, species clawing for survival, burning their last strength in futile resistance. But never had he seen such unity. Still he silenced the thought. The humans would fall, they always did. On the third night, Williams stood again before the United Command Council. Screens lit up with progress reports. War factories doubling production, orbital defenses aligning, nuclear silos prepared. And then came the news. Admiral, Lieutenant Han whispered, handing her a data pad. The Cravorn have begun scanning Earth. They're mapping our defenses. Williams's eyes narrowed, and Han's voice dropped. We think we can detect the scans, maybe even trace them. Their technology isn't as invisible as they believe. A slow smile spread across Williams's face. Then we use their arrogance against them. If they scan us, we'll scan them back, find their weaknesses, study everything. 6 days will make it enough. Her gaze lifted to the ceiling, past steel and stone to the stars above. The war for Earth had begun. The Resolute's war room was a storm of light and noise. Holographic projections swirled above the circular table, showing Dominion fleet movements, supply lines, and weapon signatures that should have been impossible to read. Yet somehow, human analysts were deciphering them in real time. Lieutenant Han's voice shook as he pointed to one glowing red arc. Their scans are still active, Admiral. They don't know we can see the beams, but they're hitting us every few minutes. Williams leaned forward, her dark eyes narrowing. And every time they scan us, we scan them back. What have we found? Han swallowed. Weaknesses, structural gaps in their shield harmonics, something they rely on called a radiation recycler. If we disable it, their shields won't recharge. A murmur spread through the chamber. The Dominion's shields had seemed impenetrable, shimmering walls of force that absorbed every conceivable attack. To learn they had an Achilles heel. It was like glimpsing the first crack in an invincible wall. General Marcus Reed leaned his scarred arms on the table. How do we hit it? Han zoomed in on the schematic. The recycler's external vents are small but not armored. Primitive weapons would pass through. High-yield explosives, electromagnetic pulses, things we already have. Williams smiled grimly. Then we fight fire with fire. They think we're centuries behind. Let's remind them what desperation makes us capable of. On the Eternal Conquest, High Commander Vazix prepared the first wave. Dozens of Dominion destroyers floated in formation, their sleek bodies glimmering like obsidian blades. Deploy the subjugation fleet, Vazix commanded, his voice carrying through the command deck. Target their satellites and military hubs, break their defenses swiftly. Strategic Officer Lorax bowed but hesitated. Her mandibles clicked nervously. High Commander, their mobilization is unusual. Intelligence suggests they have unified their world's factions. Unlikely, Vazix scoffed. Their history is fragmented, constant wars among themselves. Such divisions cannot vanish in days. They mimic unity, nothing more. Lorax lowered her gaze but said no more, yet deep within doubt gnawed at her. She had seen the human broadcasts, fragments captured from primitive satellites, men and women of every skin and language standing side by side under a single banner. It was different, strange, dangerous. Day 6. The Dominion destroyers entered Earth orbit like wolves descending upon a flock. They moved with predatory grace, weapons charged, shields shimmering. From the surface, billions of humans watched in horror as burning trails cut across the night sky, alien vessels blotting out constellations. Children cried. Soldiers gripped their rifles tighter. Families huddled in basements, waiting for the storm. On the moon, the colossal rail gun roared for the first time. A blinding streak tore through the void, slamming into a Dominion destroyer before it could maneuver. The vessel exploded in a burst of green fire, fragments scattering across orbit. The soundless shockwave rippled through space. Cheers erupted across Earth. The impossible had happened, an alien warship destroyed. But the joy lasted only a moment. "Multiple hostiles inbound," cried Han aboard the Resolute. "They're targeting major cities." Williams's heart clenched. She slammed her fist on the armrest. "Redirect all orbital defenses, protect the civilians." Primitive human satellites turned into makeshift weapons platforms. Retrofitted lasers fired beams of concentrated light. Nuclear missiles arced upward from hidden silos, detonating near Dominion hulls. One destroyer faltered, its shields flickering under the electromagnetic pulse. Earth's defenses struck again, this time with kinetic slugs, dense rods of tungsten launched from improvised cannons. The destroyer cracked open like an egg. But the others pressed on. Plasma fire rained down, annihilating military bases, scorching farmland, leaving scars visible from orbit. The night sky over Asia lit with streaks of blue energy as whole districts were vaporized. Billions of humans felt the terror of extinction, but also the fire of defiance. In Geneva's War Council, sweat dripped down every brow as commanders screamed updates. Losses in New Delhi, catastrophic. Tokyo silos launching, 3 direct hits on their cruiser. Civilian casualties in Mexico City, thousands dead. Williams's voice cut through the chaos. "Stay focused. Every ship we destroy gives us a chance. Every minute we survive is one they didn't plan for." Suddenly, Han looked up from his console, eyes wide. "Admiral, they're pulling back." Williams froze. "What?" "They've lost 17 destroyers. Their formations are breaking. They're retreating to regroup." The room fell silent, stunned. Humanity's first stand, bloody, desperate, chaotic, had not ended in immediate annihilation. The Dominion had underestimated them. Williams exhaled slowly, trembling with adrenaline. "Signal every unit. Tell them Earth just survived the first wave." On the Eternal Conquest, High Commander Vazix's mandibles clattered in fury. 17 destroyers lost to primitives. Science Officer Zenta bowed low, all 6 eyes blinking rapidly in distress. "They exploited weaknesses we did not know they could detect. Electromagnetic pulses, kinetic strikes, they adapted." "Impossible," Vazix roared, slamming a clawed fist into his throne. "No pre-warp species has ever countered our shields." Lorax spoke quietly, yet her words carried. "Perhaps they are not like the others, High Commander." Vazix turned his four-eyed glare upon her. "Every species believes it is special, everyone, but in the end they all break." He leaned forward, mandibles clicking with venom. "Launch the second wave, burn their cities, crush their hope, leave nothing standing." Yet even as he spoke, a seed of unease spread through him. For the first time in millennia, the Dominion had not won the first strike. Meanwhile, in a converted factory on Earth, amidst the roar of machines forging weapons, a mechanic named Daniel Hale wiped sweat from his brow. Once a soldier, he had left the army broken by war. But when the call went out, he returned, not as a fighter, but as a builder. Beside him, an alien figure adjusted a plasma coil. Tall, with pale blue skin and delicate ridged features, the being moved with precise grace. Her name was Kersh, one of the few surviving refugees from a world the Dominion had already conquered. "Humans work fast," she said, her voice a musical hum. Daniel smirked, tightening a bolt. That's because we never stop fighting, even when it's stupid, even when it's hopeless. Kersh tilted her head, studying him with luminous eyes. Hope is not stupid, it is dangerous. That is why the Dominion fears it. Daniel paused, struck by the weight of her words. He realized then that this war was bigger than Earth. It was about every species crushed beneath Dominion claws, and humanity somehow had become their only chance. Back in orbit, Dominion reinforcements surged forward. Dozens of destroyers, flanked by carriers and cruisers, darkened the void. Their weapons pulsed with lethal energy, promising destruction on a scale Earth could scarcely imagine. Admiral Williams stood on the bridge of the Resolute, her crew tense, their eyes wide with fear. The first wave had been a miracle, the second would be hell. She looked around at the men and women beside her, ordinary humans who had chosen to fight the impossible. Her voice rang clear. They think they can scare us into surrender, but they don't understand. We've spent our entire history fighting each other. Now, for the first time, we fight together. That makes us unstoppable. That makes us human. The crew erupted in cheers, fists pounding consoles, voices shouting in unison. Fear turned to fire. Outside, the second wave descended. The second wave of the Dominion fleet filled the skies like a storm. From the deserts of Africa to the snowy peaks of the Andes, people looked up and saw death blotting out the stars. On the bridge of the Resolute, Admiral Tanya Williams braced herself against the railing. Her heart hammered, but her voice was steady. Status. Lieutenant Hand's face was pale. 70 Dominion ships inbound, cruisers, carriers, multiple destroyer wings. Their flagship remains in orbit directing. General Marcus Reed crossed his arms, his scarred face unreadable. They want to finish it now, break our spine in one strike. Williams nodded. Then let's show them what happens when you corner humanity. In the orbital shadow of Earth's moon, the rail gun fired again. Its recoil shook craters across the lunar surface, but the projectile screamed through space with terrifying speed. It ripped into a Dominion carrier, tearing it in half. Fire blossomed, debris scattering into the void. Cheers erupted across the Resolute, but then the Dominion answered. Plasma bombardments rained down on the moon. Massive gouts of energy tore into the surface, shaking lunar bases to rubble. Dust clouds rose kilometers high, blotting out the stars from view. The rail gun was crippled, silenced in a storm of alien fire. Humanity's greatest weapon was gone. In the war room beneath Geneva, panic rippled as reports streamed in. They're targeting command centers. Casualties in Rio, tens of thousands. We've lost satellite coverage over the Pacific. Williams's face hardened. Signal every station. If the sky falls, we fight from the ground. Every street, every city, every farm, we do not surrender. For a moment, silence fell in the chamber. The world's leaders, once divided by centuries of mistrust, now shared the same grim determination. President Akoro spoke, his deep voice carrying weight. Then let Earth itself become our fortress. Meanwhile, Daniel, Hale, and Kersh worked frantically in the repurposed factory. Smoke and sparks filled the air as engines roared, machines hammering out crude war machines at breakneck speed. Kersh adjusted the plasma coil on a makeshift cannon. Her delicate hands trembled, but her voice was steady. They are coming faster than we can prepare. Daniel wiped sweat from his brow. That's how it always feels, but you keep fighting anyway, that's the trick. Kersh studied him, her alien eyes shimmering. Your people are strange. When my world fell, we fought too, but fear crushed us quickly. You humans, you seem to grow stronger under fear. Daniel grinned crookedly. That's because we're stubborn bastards, and maybe because we've spent our whole lives fighting ourselves. We know how to bleed and keep going. Kersh's lips curved into the faintest smile. Perhaps that is why the Dominion fears you. In orbit, the second wave struck. Dominion destroyers poured plasma into Earth's defenses, smashing satellites, torching the upper atmosphere in burning streaks. Yet the humans adapted with terrifying speed. Repurposed civilian craft darted among the chaos. Old space shuttles, cargo freighters, even tourist liners had been armored with steel plates, armed with scavenged cannons, and thrown into the fight. Crude, clumsy, but deadly. One such vessel, the Atlas, charged a Dominion cruiser head-on. Its crew of volunteers, engineers, miners, students pushed the engines to the breaking point. At the last second, they ejected in escape pods, leaving the Atlas to slam into the cruiser's side. The explosion ripped through the alien hull, leaving it drifting lifeless in orbit. Humanity's cheers echoed across the globe. Sacrifice, ingenuity, courage, they were turning desperation into weapons. But the Dominion adapted as well. On the Eternal Conquest, High Commander Vazix leaned forward, mandibles clattering with fury. They used their own ships as weapons, irrational, wasteful, yet effective. Science Officer Zenta's 6 eyes blinked rapidly in distress. High Commander, they are exploiting our recyclers again. Every time their crude explosives detonate, our shields falter. They are learning faster than we anticipated. Vazix growled low in his throat. Then we escalate, deploy orbital bombardment protocols, target their population centers, break their unity through fear. Lorax hesitated, her claws flexed nervously. With respect, High Commander, destroying their cities may only strengthen their resolve. Already they fight with an intensity no other species has shown. Vazix's 4 eyes narrowed. You question me. No, Commander, she said quickly, lowering her gaze. Yet her mind whispered treasonous doubts. For the first time, she wondered, what if the humans could win? The bombardment began. Great spears of plasma rained down from orbit, turning night to day across entire continents. Cities burned, oceans boiled, fields turned to ash. And yet Earth did not break. In every ruined street, soldiers and civilians alike fought with grit and fury. Homemade rockets streaked into the sky. Railgun slugs fashioned from scrap metal tore into alien ships. Hackers jammed Dominion comms, filling their frequencies with human defiance. This is Earth, we don't surrender. On the Resolute, alarms blared. Admiral, Han cried. They've breached our defense lines, dozens of destroyers inbound, direct course for Geneva Command. Williams's blood ran cold. Geneva wasn't just a command center, it was the heart of humanity's unity. If it fell, the world might shatter back into chaos. She turned to General Reed. We can't let them reach Geneva, not at any cost. Reed's scarred face was grim. Then we hit them with everything we've got, no reserves, no fallback. Williams nodded, heart pounding. Signal all units, prepare for counterstrike. The battle above Geneva was chaos incarnate. Human ships hurled themselves at Dominion destroyers like wolves tearing at a lion. Plasma fire rained down, but the humans answered with nuclear mines, crude but devastating. The sky lit with fire as ships died, alien and human alike. On the ground, anti-air batteries thundered, launching volleys of missiles into orbit. Entire hillsides disappeared in smoke and flame as human defenders poured their last strength into the sky. And then a breakthrough. Han's voice rang out. Admiral, they've breached their shield harmonics again. Their flagship's recycler is exposed. Williams's heart leapt. Target it, everything we have now. Every weapon fired, nuclear warheads, kinetic slugs, lasers cobbled together from telescopes. A storm of human fury converged on the Eternal Conquest. The flagship shuddered, its shields collapsing in a burst of green light. For the first time in its long, terrible history, the Dominion's greatest warship bled. On its bridge, Vazix staggered as explosions tore through the deck. Smoke and sparks filled the air. His mandibles clattered in disbelief. Impossible, they cannot. But they had. In that moment across Earth, humanity realized something extraordinary. The Dominion was not invincible. They could be hurt. They could bleed. And if they could bleed, they could die. The Eternal Conquest burned. Through the viewport of the Resolute, Admiral Tanya Williams watched green plasma bleed from the Dominion flagship's ruptured flanks. Whole sections of its armor plate spun away into orbit, scattering like dying embers across the void. On Earth, billions erupted in cheers. Humanity had struck a god, the Predator bled. But Williams did not cheer. Her instincts screamed what would come next. Damage report on the flagship, she demanded. Lieutenant Han's voice trembled. Shields disabled, multiple hull breaches, but weapons arrays are still intact. General Marcus Reed's scarred face darkened. They'll want revenge. Williams nodded grimly, and they'll get it. On the Eternal Conquest, High Commander Vazix staggered through smoke-filled corridors. Fire licked the ceiling, sparks raining like molten rain. Dozens of officers rushed to contain the chaos, their mandibles clattering in panic. Science Officer Zenta met him, 6 eyes wide in alarm. High Commander, our recycler is destroyed. Shield integrity has collapsed. Then rebuild it, Vazek snapped, fury boiling in his voice. Impossible in combat conditions, Zenta replied, mandibles clicking nervously. They're primitive explosives, how could they know where to strike? Vazek's four eyes narrowed. Because they are learning faster than any species we've faced. Strategic Officer Lorax approached, her armor scorched, her voice quiet. Commander, the humans must be crushed now. If word spreads that primitives crippled our flagship. She did not finish. The thought was unthinkable. Vazek hissed, a guttural sound of fury and humiliation. Then unleash everything. No more protocols, no more restraint. Burn their cities, shatter their will. The retaliation began without warning. From orbit, Dominion weapons unleashed firestorms upon Earth. Plasma cannons ignited whole districts in seconds. Skyscrapers melted. Oceans boiled where beams struck deep water. Forests became seas of flame. Rio de Janeiro vanished in light. Cairo burned beneath green fire. Shanghai erupted into a crater of molten glass. Screams echoed across the world, broadcast on every channel. Humanity wept and hardened. Daniel Hale stood in the wreckage of the factory, flames clawing skyward where Dominion bombardment had struck. His chest heaved, his hands raw from dragging survivors out of the rubble. Around him, men and women he had worked beside lay broken, their tools still clutched in lifeless hands. Beside him, Kersh staggered, her blue skin streaked with soot. One of her ridged arms hung limp, shattered, yet her luminous eyes still burned. They slaughter without hesitation, she whispered. They will not stop until you kneel. Daniel clenched his fists. Then we don't kneel, we fight harder. His gaze lifted skyward, where fire streaked the heavens. For the first time in his life, he did not feel small beneath the stars. He felt angry. In Geneva, the War Council sat in stunned silence as casualty reports scrolled endlessly. Millions dead, whole cities gone. President Akoro's deep voice broke the stillness. We cannot endure another strike like this. Chancellor Bauer slammed his fist on the table. Then what do you propose? Surrender. No, Admiral Williams said coldly, her eyes burned like steel. We take the fight to them. The chamber erupted in disbelief. Impossible. We barely survive on our own soil. We have no fleet, no warp drives. Williams raised her hand. Silence fell. We don't need warp drives, we have their ships. She tapped a screen, pulling up schematics of Dominion wreckage already in human hands, destroyers crippled in orbit, carriers adrift in the upper atmosphere, engines intact, weapons recoverable. General Reed grinned, a wolf's smile. You mean to say we steal their ships and use them against them? Williams nodded. Exactly, they came to enslave us, instead we'll hijack their weapons, turn their own fire back upon them. Operation Phoenix began in silence. Under cover of orbital debris, teams of soldiers, engineers, and civilians boarded wrecked Dominion destroyers. They worked with desperate speed, prying open alien consoles, splicing wires, forcing human computers into alien cores. Kersh, though wounded, guided Daniel and his team through the labyrinthine halls of a captured destroyer. Her knowledge of Dominion tech saved them from fatal mistakes. Careful, she said softly, pointing to a crystalline node glowing faintly. That powers their gravitic stabilizers. Damage it and the ship collapses into itself. Daniel nodded, sweat pouring down his brow. Then let's keep this bird flying. For days, teams worked without rest. Bit by bit, humanity bent Dominion ships to their will. And then, for the first time in history, a human voice spoke through a Dominion command system. This is Captain Daniel Hale, commanding officer of the EDF Retribution, and I say it's payback time. When the Dominion launched its next assault, they were met with fire they did not expect. From the shadow of Earth's night side, human-controlled destroyers roared to life. Plasma cannons, once the terror of countless worlds, now thundered in Earth's defense. Alien beams cut through Dominion wings, ripping their cruisers apart. On the ground, the people of Earth lifted their eyes and saw alien fire turn to human salvation. Hope ignited like wildfire. On the Resolute, Williams's eyes gleamed. Signal to all units, humanity now commands the stars. High Commander Vazek reeled in disbelief as reports poured in. Our ships stolen? How? Lorax's mandibles clicked softly. They adapt, Commander, faster than even we imagined. They are using our own systems against us. Vazix roared in fury. Then destroy the stolen vessels, show them they cannot wield Dominion fire. But already it was too late. The humans had become predators among the stars. The turning point came above the Pacific. A Dominion fleet of 20 destroyers bore down on Earth's last line of defense. Behind them, the crippled Eternal Conquest still loomed, its weapons arrays glowing ominously. The Dominion expected submission. Instead, the humans attacked. The Retribution and 3 other stolen destroyers tore into the enemy line, plasma fire burning alien hulls. Human voices shouted through hacked comms. "This is Earth defense. You wanted slaves, you found wolves." The Dominion line broke, destroyers scattered, crippled. But the Eternal Conquest remained, its weapons primed. One final barrage could end humanity's fragile resistance. Williams's blood went cold. If that ship fires, it's over. On the Retribution, Daniel gritted his teeth, staring at the massive flagship. "Then we take it down ourselves." Kersh's luminous eyes widened. "You're mad. That ship could glass continents with one volley." "Yeah," Daniel said, gripping the controls, "but it can't if we're inside it." The Retribution shook violently as it broke formation, engines screaming under stress. Daniel Hale gripped the controls, sweat dripping into his eyes. The Dominion flagship loomed ahead like a mountain of steel and malice, its surface alive with glowing runes and weapon ports. Kersh strapped in beside him, her broken arm bandaged, her good hand steady on the navigation console. Her pale blue face was calm, though her ridged brow furrowed in concentration. "Targeting arrays are powering up," she warned. "If that ship fires, Earth is ash." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Then we make sure it never fires again." The plan was madness, board the Eternal Conquest, cripple its core from within. But madness was all humanity had left. "Approaching docking bay," Kersh said. "Shields are weakened from the recycler damage. This is our only chance." The Retribution dove into the flagship's shadow. Enemy fire streaked past, but Daniel threw the ship into a reckless roll, skimming so close to the Dominion hull that warning sirens wailed. Sparks flew as debris scraped across their armor. "Docking clamps engaged," Kersh shouted. Daniel slammed the release. "All teams move out. Remember, this isn't just a raid, this is for Earth." Inside the Eternal Conquest, smoke filled the air. Alarms blared in alien tones, echoing through massive corridors carved from living metal. Dominion soldiers, towering, insectoid forms with chitin armor, swarmed to meet the intruders. Daniel's squad poured in, rifles blazing. Plasma bolts lit the air, slamming into the alien warriors. Kersh fought at Daniel's side, her movements elegant and precise, her blade a streak of silver light. "Left flank," Daniel barked. He rolled behind a support pillar as plasma fire scorched the walls. "Kersh, where's the power core?" She cut down a Dominion trooper with a clean strike. "Deep within, beneath the command deck, but it will be heavily guarded." Daniel grinned grimly. "Figures, nothing worth doing is easy." On the bridge of the flagship, High Commander Vazix's mandibles clicked furiously. "We are being boarded. Impossible, our shields." Science Officer Zenta interrupted, 6 eyes trembling. "When we recalibrated against their EMP attacks, we created a resonance gap in the transporter frequency. They exploited it, piggybacked through our own supply drones." Vazix slammed a clawed fist into the console, cracking it. "Seal the bulkheads. Deploy every guard. No primitive insects will take my ship." But deep inside, unease gnawed at him. Already Earth had done the impossible. What if they did it again? The corridors of the Eternal Conquest became a labyrinth of fire and blood. Daniel's team advanced room by room, laying charges, blowing doors, pushing deeper. Every Dominion warrior they faced fought with disciplined fury, but the humans fought harder. At one junction, Kersh stopped suddenly, her luminous eyes widening. "Wait." Daniel glanced back. "What is it?" She touched a wall etched with glowing runes. "This isn't just power conduits. This is a memory lattice. The Dominion builds their ships with living archives." Her voice trembled. "If we access this, we could know everything. Fleet movements, weapon designs, even their homeworld." Daniel's pulse quickened. "Then get it open." Kersh placed her hands on the runes. Her skin glowed faintly as she sang a low, resonant tone. a technique from her people, long enslaved by the Dominion. The runes pulsed, then opened, revealing a crystalline core swirling with light. Data flooded their systems, schematics, encryption codes, coordinates, the Dominion's entire database. Daniel stared stunned. We just stole their empire. Kersh's eyes glistened. No, Daniel, we may have just saved the galaxy. But the moment shattered with a roar. A squad of elite Dominion guards burst through the bulkhead, towering brutes with armored exoskeletons and energy blades that shimmered like molten glass. Contact, Daniel shouted. The battle was brutal. Plasma bolts tore through the narrow corridor. Daniel's rifle overheated, forcing him to draw his sidearm. He ducked as an energy blade sliced sparks from the wall inches from his face. Kersh moved like flowing water, parrying blow after blow, but one strike caught her side. She staggered, blood like liquid silver spilling across the deck. Kersh, Daniel cried, dragging her behind cover. She winced, her voice a whisper. Finish it, Daniel, don't stop. Rage ignited in him. He surged from cover, grenades primed. For Earth, he roared, hurling them into the squad. The explosion ripped through the corridor, the shockwave hurling alien bodies into molten shards. Smoke cleared, silence. Daniel slumped beside Kersh, breathing hard. She smiled faintly despite her wound. You fight like one of us. Daniel squeezed her hand. No, we fight like humans. Back on Earth, Admiral Williams monitored the battle feed. The room shook as Dominion fire hammered defenses. Reports screamed across the comms, whole cities in flames, casualty counts rising by the second. Yet her eyes never left the feed from the retribution. Daniel's team was inside the enemy flagship, and they were winning. Madness, General Reed muttered, but damned if it isn't working. Williams allowed herself the faintest smile. Sometimes madness is humanity's greatest weapon. At last, Daniel and Kersh reached the power core chamber. It was vast, a cathedral of light and machinery. A pulsating crystal heart glowed at its center, suspended in a cage of energy. Tendrils of power licked the walls like lightning, illuminating vast alien glyphs etched into the floor. Kersh's voice trembled in awe. This is it, the source of the flagship's strength. Destroy this and the eternal conquest dies. Daniel tightened the strap on his last explosive pack. Then let's kill a god. They advanced, but the chamber shook. From the shadows emerged High Commander Vazix. Towering armored, his 4 eyes burned with fury. Behind him, Dominion guards fanned out, weapons gleaming. Vazix's mandibles clicked in a rhythm of disdain. So, the insects crawl into the lion's den, you will not leave alive. Daniel leveled his rifle, teeth gritted. Funny, we were about to say the same thing. The chamber erupted in chaos. Blades clashed, plasma fire roared. Daniel fought with feral desperation, ducking and firing, his body screaming with exhaustion. Kersh, wounded but unyielding, struck with deadly grace. But Vazix was unstoppable. He tore through Daniel's squad, claws slicing armor, his crystal crown glowing with searing power. With a single backhand, he sent Daniel crashing against the wall, blood spraying from his lips. You cannot stop destiny, Vazix hissed, towering over him. The Dominion is eternal. Daniel spat blood, forcing a grin. Funny thing about destiny, he lifted the detonator in his trembling hand. Humans don't believe in it. Kersh slammed her blade into the crystal lattice. Sparks erupted, the power core screaming as cracks splintered through its surface. The entire ship shook violently, alarms wailing in alien tones. Vazix's eyes widened in fury, and perhaps for the first time fear. The core chamber blazed with wild, unstable energy. The crystal heart of the eternal conquest cracked like ice under strain, each fissure glowing with searing light. Alarms howled in alien tones. The floor shook violently, throwing sparks and shards of molten metal into the air. Daniel Hale lay dazed against the wall, chest heaving. His side throbbed where Vazix's strike had nearly caved in his ribs. Blood dripped into his eye, but his hand never let go of the detonator. Kersh staggered at the base of the core, her silver-blue blood staining the deck. Her blade still glowed from the strike she had driven into the lattice. She looked weak, but her luminous eyes still burned with fierce resolve. And between them stood High Commander Vazix. He towered over the chamber, a figure of fury and dominance. His crystalline crown blazed with violet fire, his mandibles clicking in a rhythm of rage. With one clawed hand, he wrenched Kersh away from the core and hurled her across the room like a rag doll. She crashed into the wall with a cry, barely conscious. "You dare wound my ship," Vazix roared, his voice echoing through the chamber. "You dare strike at the Dominion itself." Daniel forced himself to his feet, coughing blood. His hands trembled, but his voice was steady. "Yeah, we dare. That's the difference between us and you." The chamber shook violently. Dominion guards charged, energy blades flashing. Daniel fired his rifle until it overheated, then switched to grenades. Smoke and plasma filled the air. Kersh, gasping but unyielding, dragged herself back to the fight. She moved with practiced precision, her blade cutting arcs of silver light through the chaos. Side by side, they fought as if they had always been a team. But Vazix was a storm. His claws sliced through cover like paper. His blows rattled Daniel to his bones. Every strike seemed unstoppable, every move designed to crush. "You are ants playing at war," Vazix bellowed, knocking Daniel's weapon aside. "I have conquered 63 worlds. I will add yours to the list." Daniel ducked under a swipe, pain screaming through his ribs. He grabbed a fallen plasma blade, its hilt hot in his hand. 63 worlds," he growled, "and you still don't get it." He slashed wildly, driving Vazix back a step. Sparks flew. Humans don't scare easy. Back on Earth, Admiral Williams watched the flagship's vitals spike across the tactical display. Its energy readings were unstable, chaotic. General Reed leaned over her shoulder. "That ship, about to blow, if Hale's team doesn't make it out." Williams cut him off. They have to." But even as she said it, she knew the truth. Daniel and Kersh were running out of time. Inside the core chamber, Vazix struck Daniel across the face, sending him sprawling. His vision swam, but his hand found the detonator again. Kersh crawled toward him, her voice raw. "Daniel, the core is overloading if we don't stop it." Daniel wiped blood from his eyes and grinned bitterly. "Then we take him with it." He thumbed the detonator. Explosions rippled through the core supports. The crystal heart screamed with light, cracks spreading like wildfire. The flagship trembled violently, systems cascading into failure. Fires erupted in every corridor. Across its vast decks, Dominion soldiers screamed as bulkheads collapsed and gravity shifted wildly. On the bridge, science officer Zenta shrieked, "The core is collapsing, we must evacuate." Vazix's voice thundered back through the comms. "No retreat, hold your ground." But it was too late. The Eternal Conquest became a dying star. Its colossal hull split apart, sections tumbling into orbit like broken bones. Green plasma vented into space, carving jagged auroras across the atmosphere. On Earth, people watched in awe as the sky lit with alien fire. The predator that had haunted their nightmares now fell before their eyes. Children cheered, soldiers wept, families embraced. For the first time, the galaxy's shadow lifted from Earth. But inside the chaos, Daniel and Kersh still fought for survival. The chamber collapsed around them. Vazix, wounded but unbroken, loomed through the smoke. His 4 eyes burned with pure hatred. "You think this is victory?" he snarled, advancing through the flames. "The Dominion spans 7 sectors. This is only one fleet. You have doomed yourselves." Daniel raised the plasma blade with trembling arms. "Maybe, but at least we showed you we're not sheep." Vazix lunged. Daniel met him head-on, blade to claw, sparks flying in the heart of the collapsing core. Kersh, bleeding heavily, dragged herself to the detonator console. She locked eyes with Daniel. For a moment, time froze. Then she slammed her hand down. The core erupted. A blinding flash consumed the chamber. Energy tore through the ship, ripping it apart from within. Shockwaves cascaded across orbit. On the Resolute, Williams shielded her eyes as the sensors overloaded. The flagship. General Reed stared at the display, disbelief in his scarred face. "It's gone." Debris rained across the heavens. The Eternal Conquest, symbol of Dominion supremacy, was no more. But no one knew if Daniel and Kersh had survived. For hours, the EDF scoured the wreckage. Dozens of escape pods were recovered, some human, some Dominion, but there was no sign of Daniel's squad. Williams stood on the observation deck, watching fragments of alien steel burn up in Earth's atmosphere. Her fists clenched, her throat tight. "They gave us this chance," she whispered. We won't waste it. Yet in the void, one battered escape pod tumbled silently. Its hull was scorched, its systems barely alive. Inside, Daniel Hale drifted in and out of consciousness. Kersh lay beside him, her breathing shallow, her hand still clasping his. A faint crackle filled the pod as a human signal broke through. This is EDF recovery. Pod identified. Survivors confirmed. Hold on, we're bringing you home. Daniel smiled faintly, darkness closing over him. Told you we don't kneel. On the Dominion homeworld, panic rippled through the Grand Council. The loss of the Eternal Conquest was unthinkable. No pre-warp world had ever destroyed a Dominion fleet. Supreme Commander Dravik hissed in disbelief. Impossible. One primitive world has undone 7,000 cycles of conquest. Vazek stood before them, battered and disgraced. Somehow he had escaped the wreckage. His crystalline crown was cracked, his armor scorched. They are not primitives, he said quietly. Not anymore. The chamber erupted in outrage. Lies. Excuses. One fleet does not threaten the Dominion. But Vazix met their fury with something they had never seen in him before. Fear. They adapt, they learn. In days, they turned our weapons against us. In weeks, they destroyed the Eternal Conquest. If they are not stopped now, they will bring fire to our very core worlds. Silence fell. For the first time in 7,000 cycles, the Dominion felt doubt. 3 months after the fall of the Eternal Conquest, Earth no longer looked the same. Where once cities lay in ruins, reconstruction surged with furious energy. Factories still thundered night and day, not just to rebuild, but to forge warships. Orbital docks glittered like spiderwebs across the skies, welding Dominion hulls into new shapes, ships born of alien steel and human ingenuity. From Lagos to Tokyo, from New York to Nairobi, banners of Earth fluttered. Not of nations, but of one people united by fire. Humanity had never been more wounded and never more dangerous. Admiral Tanya Williams stood on the bridge of the EDF Resolute, watching the newborn fleet assemble in low orbit. More than 60 ships hovered in formation, some stolen Dominion destroyers, others human-built hybrids, crude but bristling with weapons. General Marcus Reed strode to her side, datapad in hand. Status reports from all ships. We're combat ready. Training cycles are rough, but morale... He paused, shaking his head with something like disbelief. Morale's higher than I've ever seen. They believe in this. Williams's gaze was steady. They should. They proved it themselves. We survived the Dominion's strongest, and now we carry their weapons. Reed's scarred face hardened. It won't be enough forever. Sooner or later, the Dominion will send more fleets, bigger fleets. Williams nodded. That's why we don't wait for them. That's why we move first. On the Dominion homeworld of Cra-Magna, the Grand Council seethed with discord. The chamber, once a place of unanimous dominance, now reeked of fear. Supreme Commander Dravik pounded his claw against the stone dais. We cannot allow primitives to defy us. Mobilize all fleets, crush them before the infection spreads. But Supreme Commander Trazix, oldest among them, raised a clawed hand. The humans already spread Dravik. Reports from the outer colonies, rebellions. Species long cowed by our rule now rise up, inspired by Earth. Mandibles clicked in outrage, voices clashed. And then silence when Vazix spoke. He stood at the center, scarred from battle, his crystalline crown cracked, but his gaze burning with grim certainty. You mock me for failure, but I have seen what they are. They are chaos given form. They are innovation given teeth. They will not stop at survival. They will come for us. For the first time in millennia, the word fear hung heavy in the council's chamber. Daniel Hale woke slowly, the hum of engines surrounding him. He lay in a medbay aboard the Retribution, his ribs bound, his head still fogged. Kersh sat beside him, her arm in a sling, her luminous eyes watchful. When she saw him stir, a faint smile touched her lips. You live, she said softly. Daniel chuckled weakly, wincing at the pain. Takes more than a bug king to put me down. Kersh tilted her head. You fought him with fire in your eyes. My people would call that madness. Yours call it human. Daniel reached for her hand, squeezing it. Guess madness works. Her smile faded into something heavier. The Dominion will not forgive this. They will come with more ships, more armies. My world, others like it. We thought resistance was impossible. But now. Her voice trembled. Now we believe again. Daniel met her gaze. Then we fight together. The EDF fleet's first mission came sooner than expected. A Dominion outpost in the outer system had fallen silent. Recon drones revealed something extraordinary. The garrison had been overrun not by humans, but by alien slaves who had risen in rebellion. Inspired by Earth's defiance, they had taken their chance. Williams gathered her commanders. The briefing chamber buzzed with tension. "They are not our enemy," Williams said firmly. "They are proof that this war is bigger than Earth. If we leave them, the Dominion will crush them again. But if we go to them, if we save them, we gain allies. We show the galaxy that humanity fights not just for itself, but for everyone." Reed raised an eyebrow. "You're talking about building a coalition." Williams's lips curved into a thin smile. "I'm talking about building something the Dominion can't fight: unity." The fleet moved out. The Resolute, the Retribution, and dozens of new warships jumped across the void. No warp drives, not yet, but Dominion engines, modified by human stubbornness and Kersh's knowledge, gave them speed. They reached the outpost, a shattered Dominion station orbiting a dying star. Alien rebels, ragged and desperate, held the ruins. Dominion reinforcements were already en route. Williams's voice rang across the comms. "All ships engage. Today we don't just defend Earth. Today we free another world." The battle was brutal. Dominion cruisers poured fire into the station, but the EDF fought with cunning. Human-manned destroyers darted between plasma barrages, striking recyclers with precision. Modified rail guns punched through alien hulls. The rebels watched in awe as Earth's fleet, still newborn, tore through the Dominion line. When the dust cleared, the station still stood. And for the first time, Dominion forces had been pushed back not by luck, but by a fleet carrying Earth's banner. After the battle, Williams addressed the rebels face to face. Dozens of species, once enslaved, now free. Their eyes burned with the same mix of fear and hope humanity had carried just months before. "We are not conquerors," Williams told them. "We are not the Dominion. We came because we know what it means to face extinction. But if you stand with us, if you fight beside us, then together we can end their empire." The chamber erupted in cheers, voices of countless worlds rising as one. Kersh, standing beside Daniel, whispered, "They will follow you. They will follow Earth." Daniel squeezed her hand, looking out at the sea of alien faces. "Then let's give them something worth following." Back on Crom Magna, the Grand Council received reports of yet another defeat. Rebel worlds rising, EDF fleets striking. Supreme Commander Trazix's mandibles clicked slowly. "It begins, the end of the Dominion as we know it." Vazix stood at the edge of the chamber, silent. He remembered the human who had faced him in the core chamber, broken and bleeding, yet still smiling as he fought. He remembered the words, "We're not sheep." And for the first time in his long, brutal life, High Commander Vazix understood. The Dominion had awakened a predator it could not cage. Months later, on the neutral world of Terminus Prime, a new council convened. Representatives of 90 worlds, many freed from Dominion rule, gathered in a chamber of glass and stone. Among them sat humans, their uniforms plain but their presence immense. At the podium, Admiral Tanya Williams, now ambassador, looked out at the assembly. "My people once thought we were alone," she began. "We thought the stars were cold, uncaring. Then the Dominion came, demanding our surrender. They thought they could break us. Instead, they taught us what unity means. We are not here to rule. We are here to build, to stand together, to make sure no world suffers what ours did. The Dominion wanted slaves. Instead, they gave birth to this, our coalition, our future. Together, we are more than prey. Together, we are free." The chamber thundered with applause, voices of 100 species united. Daniel, watching from the side, felt Kersh's hand slip into his. He smiled, scarred and weary, but proud. For the first time, he believed humanity's madness might actually save the galaxy. On Crom Magna, High Commander Vazix stood alone in the shadow of the Dominion's throne. His claws clenched, his mandibles tight. "They think themselves saviors," he muttered. "They think themselves heroes." He looked up at the stars. But war is all they know, and when their fire burns too hot, it will consume even those they claim to save. Yet in his 4 eyes, the flicker of doubt remained, not just in humanity's threat, but in their terrifying potential. Far above Terminus Prime, the EDF fleet glittered against the stars. Human ships, alien ships, hybrid warcraft, an armada unlike any the galaxy had seen. On the flagship Retribution, Daniel stood at the viewport with Kersh, watching the fleet spread out like a constellation of hope. "We were supposed to die," Daniel whispered. "Supposed to be just another number in their list." Kersh's voice was soft, reverent. "Instead, you became the spark that lit the stars." Daniel nodded. His scarred reflection stared back at him, weary but unbroken. This was Earth's first war among the stars. He looked out, eyes narrowing with determination. "But it won't be the last." Final thoughts. Humanity had been tested in fire. They had survived their first encounter with the galactic predator. They had fought back with ingenuity, unity, and compassion, and in doing so had changed the fate of countless worlds. The Dominion had wanted Earth's resources. Instead, they had created their greatest enemy. And as the galaxy watched, one truth became undeniable. Humanity had arrived,